This is GTV. The differences of video games between regions is always a fun topic. Sometimes the differences are small, like different character names or easier difficulty. Other times the differences are much bigger, and the games look like wholly different creations. It's a phenomenon that happened with a lot of games in the good old days. A game of this type that comes up every now and then is JJ and Jeff for the TurboGrafx-16, known in Japan as Kato-chan and Ken-chan. The differences aren't that serious, and the games play the same regardless of which version you have. Upon release, the game kind of came and went. It wasn't bad by the standards of the time, but it wasn't that great either. Also, the TurboGrafx was not that popular, so only a few people like me actually had the game when it was new. It gained some attention after the advent of the internet, when people who knew of the game could actually communicate with each other. The differences between regions made the internet rounds as people discovered that the Japanese version featured two comedians named Kato and Ken, and some other strange things were hiding in the game. These were altered for the US version and in some cases made even weirder. But the question is, who are Kato and Ken? How did they get their own game? Why is it so weird? Let's take a look at the biography of Kato and Ken, and then talk about the differences between the Japanese and US versions of the game. Cha Kato was born in 1943 in Fukushima, Japan. At age 19, he joined the comedy group and rock band The Drifters. The Drifters were a group of comedians and musicians with a revolving lineup. You could compare the Drifters to Second City or Monty Python. The group appeared in comedy shows and released albums for decades. I'd go as far as to say that the Drifters and its members are the most famous performers in Japan. In 1966, the Drifters received their first big break when they were selected as the opening act for the Beatles, who were holding their first concert in Japan at Budokan. The government of Japan refused the Beatles' entry into the country unless a Japanese act could perform first, and so the Drifters were selected to fill this important role. The audience was out of control. It was peak Beatlemania after all, and the crowd really wanted nothing to do with the Drifters. So they put on a 45-second performance and left the stage, to wild applause. This technically fulfilled the government's mandate and launched the Drifters into stardom. Cha Kato, with the Drifters, then had their own TV show, Hachijidayo Zenin Shugo, from 1969 to 1985. In English, the title means, "It's 8 o'clock. All members of the Drifters assemble." At the start of the series, Ken Shimura joined the Drifters and became a full member a few years later. Ken Shimura was born in 1950 in Tokyo, Japan. He was well known on Hachijidayo as Bakatono-sama and became the keyboardist in the live band. While he is known for appearing in the Kato and Ken game, Ken Shimura's first game appearance was in a special version of the game Hyper Olympic, known in English as Track and Field. The Tono-sama version of the game was given away as a prize in 1985, when Konami was a sponsor of the show. Ken Shimura's Bakatono character was featured in the game. Soon after Hachijidayo ended, Kato and Ken started a new show all their own. In January 1986, Kato-chan and Ken-chan Gokigen Terebi hit the airwaves. In English, it basically means feel-good TV or fun-time TV. It featured mostly sketches with Kato and Ken in the style of the Benny Hill Show. Viewers would send in funny home movie clips to be shown on the show. This concept was later adapted into the TV show America's Funniest Home Videos. There were musical guests and interviews too. The most popular segment on Gokigen Terebi was a long-form sketch called Detective Story, and its popularity led to a home video game called Kato-chan and Ken-chan for the PC Engine. The game was released on November 30th, 1987, and was reportedly based on the show. Don't worry, we'll get to that soon. The show ran until 1992, when Kato and Ken moved on with different projects, both solo and with various members of the Drifters. Ken Shimura made very weird headlines as one of the first internet hoaxes, when in 1996 there were various rumors that he was murdered or had committed suicide. Ken Shimura is remembered in more recent years for the TV show Shimura's Zoo, where he raised a chimpanzee named Pan-kun. Cha Kato was featured in a second game, Taisen Kato-chan no Kororompe, for the Nintendo DS in 2008. In 2011, at 68 years old, Kato made headlines when he announced that he had married a woman who was not involved in show business, but was 45 years younger than him. She was born in 1988, which makes her younger than the game we all know her husband for. That's pretty messed up. When we come back, a detailed comparison of Kato and Ken to JJ and Jeff.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
加トちゃんケンちゃんがQカードになった。 PC エンジンだから面白い。おいこれ入れろ。加トちゃんケンちゃん
Enjoy Hudson。
加トちゃんケンちゃんご機嫌テレビ春祭り。
4月2日夜7時30分から加トちゃん合わせろよ。おいどっかでねどっかで上で。
加トちゃんケンちゃんご機嫌テレビ春祭り2日夜7時半。
おじさん加トちゃん1枚。はいはい。おQカードだね。そうです。加トちゃんケンちゃん PC エンジンだから面白い。加トちゃん1枚。加トちゃんケンちゃん
Enjoy Hudson。
Now that we know a little bit about who Kato and Ken are, let's get into the game. Kato-chan and Ken-chan was released on November 30th, 1987 for the PC Engine. It was the first game for the PC Engine to feature celebrities as playable characters, something that had started to become a trend in Japan. The gameplay is basically a carbon copy of Adventure Island. Just run, eat stuff, jump over obstacles, and don't die. So many people have an incomplete picture of this game, citing the scant information available in English and going by the in-game elements without any reference. Then the game comes out in English, with the generic characters JJ and Jeff replacing Kato and Ken. It actually makes sense, as no one in America would know who they are. One half-truth that always gets tossed out there is that the Kato and Ken TV show was brought overseas as America's Funniest Home Videos. That was only one segment, and yes, it's basically a ripoff of that. But by the time JJ and Jeff came out, America's Funniest Home Videos and America's Funniest People were in production and on the air. If one TV show copied the other, and the game from that TV show was brought over too, then why not go with it? Why not call it Dave and Bob, or Joey and Danny? JJ really looks like Dave Coulier, if you ask me. But the game isn't based off the home video segment in any way. It always seems strange to me that this game is based off of America's Funniest Home Videos. It just doesn't make sense. But the game does take almost everything from one segment known as Detective Story. Based on the fact that there are over 200 episodes of this one sketch done over 6 years, it was clearly the most popular segment of the Kato and Ken TV show. It also makes for a good, or at least usable, game plot, as detectives can be the good guys and save the day. In each episode of Detective Story, someone in need of help comes to Kato and Ken and explains their situation. Then Kato and Ken go to investigate and try to resolve the problem. Of course, hilarious things happen along the way, being caught in an embarrassing or funny situation being the most common. In Detective Story, Kato and Ken are usually dressed like the characters from Dragnet. That explains why they wear suits in the game, and why they are dressed as they are on the box of the game. Did you notice the room where the stories take place? It's copied exactly the same way in the game. It's the main set for the TV show and is in every episode. The couches, table, red telephone, TV, plant, lockers, steps, and door are all here. I guess if you were a fan of the show, you'd notice each little detail. Okay, so that's a few examples, but what else is there? Well, there's a lot of bodily functions. There is some of that in certain episodes of the show. Toilets, which are used as places in the game to get hints, recharge health, or play the slot machine, are featured in the show. Sometimes they malfunction, and sometimes they're used as a gag. Hiding in the bushes, doing who knows what, that's there too. They're changed to spray cans and costumes in JJ and Jeff, and it works. It's funny. And that leads us to the weirdest part of the game. When you reach one of these secret areas, the characters are dressed in a weird way and give advice. Sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes it's just weird nonsense. For me, playing this game in 1990, I couldn't understand why they were dressed up like this. It made no sense. Maybe it was an attempt to be funny, but other than being weird, I never got the joke. Well, in Kato and Ken, they make total sense, because they are side characters and gags from the show. The non-helpful advice are punchlines from the show. In JJ and Jeff, you just look at this and say, why is this here? But with some context, you can start to see what they were going for. One costume that stayed in Japan was Kenshimura's famous Bakatono character. It was changed to a druid or devil or something for America. The green kimono that JJ and Jeff wear were supposed to be Kato and Ken dressed as old women, complete with gray wigs, which was left out of JJ and Jeff. Then there's this one. To me, I always thought it was Pat O'Brien, who in 1990 was part of the NFL Today on CBS. But in Japan, this character is quite different. It looks like this. Some bald guy with a mustache and swirly glasses. The stupid, middle-aged man character. This is actually Kato's most famous character, and is actually quite funny. If he looks familiar, that's because in the Nintendo DS game I talked about earlier, Kato stars in it as this character. A few episodes have them being confronted by some Yakuza-looking bad guys, which are the inspiration for the human enemies in the game. Really, a nice way to tie it all together. Kato and Ken are in their 70s now, and will retire someday. But in Japan, their fame is so huge that they'll truly live on forever. Thanks to their game, which was retooled as JJ and Jeff, they will live on in the gaming world too. Even if most people will never know about it, now you do.